In Seville, Spain, in a neighborhood that older residents refuse to name after dark, there is a cemetery. Not the kind tourists photograph. Not the kind with clean white headstones and fresh flowers. This one is older. Forgotten. The kind of place where the iron gate never fully closes, and the cypress trees have grown so tall they block out the moon. The locals call her La Novia, the bride. And the rule, the one rule everyone in Santa Lucia knows before they are old enough to understand why, is this. You do not enter the cemetery after dark. Mateo didn't know the rule. He had only moved to Seville 3 weeks ago. It was a Thursday night in November. Mateo was a 22-year-old architecture student at the Universidad de Sevilla. He was running late, 40 minutes late, to turn in a project that was worth 30% of his grade. The bus had broken down near Triana. His phone was at 4% battery. And on Google Maps, there was a shortcut, a clean diagonal line through 6 unnecessary blocks, cutting straight through the cemetery of Santa Lucia. He had never heard anyone mention the cemetery. He had never seen anyone near it. He would later understand that these two facts were not a coincidence. He pushed open the iron gate at 11:47 p.m. The hinges did not scream. They made something worse, a slow, wet groan, like something organic being bent the wrong way. The kind of sound you feel in your back teeth. He stepped inside. The cemetery of Santa Lucia was old in a way that had nothing to do with time. The grave markers had been worn down to suggestions, names filed to nothing by 2 centuries of Andalusian wind. The pathway was narrow, irregular, as though the dead had been slowly renegotiating the borders, pushing the living lanes smaller every decade. He walked quickly, counting the rows, following the line he had memorized. His phone flashlight cut a pale column through the dark. Cypress trees rose on both sides like black teeth. Somewhere distant, a church bell began to toll midnight. Each toll pressed against his chest like a slow, closed fist. He was almost through. That was when he saw the arch. It stood apart from the main cemetery, in a sunken corner he hadn't noticed on any map. A stone arch, perhaps 3 meters high, ornate, covered in carved roses that time had eroded into shapes that looked less like flowers, and more like reaching hands. At its crown, where an angel had once been carved, the face was completely gone. Smooth, blank, a pale oval of stone that caught the moonlight like a held breath. And beneath the arch, an altar, blanketed in dead petals. The petals were white. They were wedding flowers. Mateo was not a superstitious man. He had grown up in Madrid, educated, secular. The kind of person who rolled his eyes at ghost stories. But something about the arch made his feet go wrong. Not frozen, just uncertain. As though the ground beneath them could no longer be trusted. He reached out and touched one of the dead petals. It was cold. Not the cold of a November night. Cold with intention behind it. The petal crumbled. And from directly behind him, close enough that he should have felt breath on the back of his neck, he heard the sound of a veil moving in wind that wasn't blowing. He turned around. She was standing 6 inches from his face. He had expected something grotesque. The horror film face. Sunken eyes. Visible decay. He braced for it. What he got was worse. Because it was almost nothing. Her face was pale. Young. Almost ordinary. The face of a woman in her mid-20s, dark-eyed, with features that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. The wrongness was in the details. Her eyes were not focusing on him. Her lips were parted, but no breath moved between them. There was no muscular movement. No micro-expression. None of the 1,000 tiny adjustments that living faces make without knowing. She was still, in the way that only dead things are still. She was not looking at Mateo. She was looking through him, at something just behind his left shoulder, with an expression of such concentrated, agonized longing that he felt it like a pressure against his sternum. She was not looking for him. She was looking for someone else. Her lips moved. No sound came out, but he could read the word. One word, shaped by a mouth that had been shaping it for a very, very long time. Rodrigo. 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 Mateo ran. He didn't remember the rest of the cemetery. He remembered the gate. He remembered the street. He remembered sitting on his kitchen floor with every light on in the apartment, unable to explain why he'd chosen the floor. He didn't sleep. In the morning, he went to the university library. It took him 4 hours to find it. A footnote in a 1987 regional history of Seville's ecclesiastical architecture. The cemetery of Santa Lucia, the footnote mentioned, contained a section in its southwestern corner, historically known as El Rincón de la Novia, the bride's corner, associated with a tragic event in the year 1847. He found the original chronicle through interlibrary loan. It took 3 more days. The relevant passage was 8 lines long. This month marks the anniversary of the terrible abandonment of Dona Elena Vasquez de Rios, who was left at the altar of the Santa Lucia chapel by one Rodrigo Madam of Cadiz on the morning of March 14, 1847. The bride, refusing to leave, was found dead in the chapel gardens 3 days later, still in her wedding dress, beneath the ceremonial arch. She was buried where she was found. The arch stands still. Local people do not pass there after dark. March 14, 1847. 179 years ago. She had been standing under that arch for nearly 2 centuries, watching for a man who had boarded a boat to Cadiz and probably died in his own bed at a comfortable old age. She didn't know. She was still waiting. She would always be waiting. He went back. 12 days later. He told himself it was for closure. For documentation. He brought extra batteries for his flashlight. He brought his phone, fully charged. He brought, without quite knowing why, a single white rose. She was already there. Not appearing, already there. Standing beneath the broken arch in the yellow-white dress, hands clasped, head bowed, the dead boutonniere still pressed against her throat. He stood 4 meters away. He made himself breathe. He said her name. Elena. She raised her head. He is not coming, Mateo said. Rodrigo Madam. He left. He went back to Cadiz. Elena. He has been gone for 179 years. He is not coming. She looked at the rose he placed on the altar. Her head tilted, a single degree, and the dead flower at her throat shivered without wind. He stepped aside, out of her path, leaving the space beneath the arch open, leaving whatever was beyond the arch, unobstructed. Go, he said, quietly. You can go. And then she began to leave. Not walking, not vanishing, simply becoming less present. Her edges going vague. The white dress blurring at its margins until it was less a dress and more a quality of the air. Until the arch was empty. Before she disappeared, in the last half second before the arch stood empty, her lips moved one final time. Not his name. Not Rodrigo. Something else. He spent months trying to reconstruct what it was. The shape of the first sound. The way her lips pressed together and then opened. He thinks. He is not sure. He will never be sure. It might have been gracias. Thank you. Somewhere in Seville, there is an old cemetery with a broken arch. Local people do not pass there after dark. They never did explain why.